so much for joining me for yet another What I Eat in a Day video. I love starting off the morning with water, and this is a half-gallon jar that I've been drinking out of. I really love it because it's so much easier to stay hydrated just filling this bottle up twice a day, and then after I drink, I like to give my plants a drink and water my garden. This is one of my favorite morning rituals when it's been pretty dry and there hasn't been a lot of rain. It just feels so enchanting to water the garden. And I also picked some cilantro for my breakfast today, and this morning it was my responsibility to feed the house cats. So I live with 3 kitties. Their names are Ochi, Tiger, and Garfy, and I just feed them the cat food that one of my roomies bought for them. And for breakfast, I decided to start off with some celery juice, which I love drinking on an empty stomach. And I like to remove the leaves so that it's a little bit less bitter. And I just put the straight up celery in a blender with a good splash of water. It depends how much celery you're using, how much water you want to use. I just kind of eye it out, and then after, you're just going to want to pour that mixture into a nut milk bag. I've used a cheesecloth before, but usually the fibers kind of seep through, and I personally like to add a little bit of the pulp into the drink so I get that extra celery juice fiber. This is really good for your liver, and I just like drinking that kind of instead of coffee or tea. And I love eating veggies first thing in the morning, so I'm steaming here some kale and some zucchini in my favorite pan, which I'll have linked down below with $20 off. And then after I'm done steaming it, I really like to saute my veggies with lemon, liquid aminos, and garlic powder. This is my favorite way to eat vegetables. And then I'm sauteing some yellow pepper with this fake just egg. And this is yellow mung bean base. And I love to sprinkle salt, pepper, and BioLife vegan cheese on top. And then I also added some kimchi to this meal for some probiotics and the fresh cilantro as a garnish from my garden. This is so delicious and balanced. I love having a little bit of vegan cheese in the morning and also tons of leafy greens. It feels really fueling and energizing and digests really well. And I also decided to meal prep for my lunch by just letting this tempeh marinade in a bowl of coconut aminos, sriracha, and garlic powder. And I just mixed all of that up. If you have soy sauce, it's really yummy just to make soy sauce and maple syrup together with some onion powder, garlic powder. But for a snack, I had some frozen bananas with a splash of almond milk all blended up to make some nice cream. This is my guilty pleasure. Not even guilty, it's just my pleasure, baby. But a Vitamix is really helpful when making nice cream. I splashed in some vanilla extract, bunch of cinnamon. I added 2 scoops of my favorite chocolate protein powder, which I'll have linked down below, a generous amount of maca powder, a scoop of vegan collagen, and this dried green powder. Just pretty much all of my superfoods I mix in there, and this stuff is so good. I just lick it off the spoon. It looks a little questionable and gooey and maybe not super appetizing, but this stuff is so good, and I love getting all of my superfoods in one delicious little treat, and it's definitely energizing. But for lunch, I decided to make some spring rolls, so I started by preparing these vermicelli rice noodles, which are my absolute favorite, and then picking some fresh basil from my garden, which I just feel so blessed and enchanted to have. And I got my tempeh out of the fridge. Now, you don't have to marinate your tempeh for hours. I've marinated it for 5 minutes and it still tastes just as delicious. And I just cooked it on medium high so that everything got nice and crispy. And you can also bake this in the oven. And then I just prepared my rice paper by dipping it in some warm water and started assembling my spring rolls with the noodles. I poured over some hoisin sauce, sesame furikake, basil, yellow pepper, and pretty much any veggies that I had on hand, but tons of spinach and basil. And a lot of times these are served with a really good sauce, but I personally felt like the hoisin sauce was just all I needed, so I made a few of those, and that was my lunch. These look so heavenly. I'm not gonna lie, I've already eaten 2 or 3 of them. And let's just take a deep breath, shall we, into our tummies. If you're eating, Take a deep breath into your tummy. I'm gonna say some prayers, and I think I'm just gonna cut that out because I just go on tangents and it takes a minute and I love it. Just calling upon all of my guides and angels and spirits who are watching over me and thanking them for assisting me in all the miracles that I am so lucky to receive in this moment. So let me just shout them out real quick. Every time after I say a prayer, I just feel so good and like everything's gonna be okay, especially if I'm feeling nervous or any type of anxiety. Saying a prayer just really helps me to remember that I'm not alone in the world and that there is a divine plan and that I am held beyond my comprehension. Cheers. These are so good. When the noodles are still warm, it hits so differently. And I pack the spinach in here, if you can see that. Like, I really load it in. But in my last vlog, I'm gonna take a break from these babies. This is gonna be a little book club moment, so if you don't really care about the books that I'm reading and stuff, then I'll have a timestamp here for you to go and see what I eat for dinner. But I mentioned that I was reading Untamed by Glennon Doyle. This book is so good. It covers so many different topics. Let me see if I can read some things that I've underlined or some pages that I've dog-eared. It's just reminding me that acting in my fullest embodiment and living in my fullest embodiment is almost like a form of rebellion, and rebelling really against the conditioning that has kept women small for hundreds of years or has kept women from rising to their fullest potential. She's also really honest and funny and just really candid about areas of her own ignorance. This book has like made me laugh out loud. It has made me cry, and I'm sure so many of you have already read it. I really like this one line that I underlined. Every world changer's work begins with a broken heart. I will not let the fact that I cannot do everything keep me from doing what I can. And these are just tiny little things, but I'm trying to get to one of the stories that I felt really resonated. The author Glennon Doyle was married with a husband and 3 kids. He was unfaithful to her in their marriage from the start of their marriage, and eventually she ended up falling in love with a woman and ending her marriage, but really beginning her life and starting her family in a way that was fully honoring herself. Glennon is a Christian woman, and her wife Abby was raised in the church but felt like she was wrong because she was gay, and her wife knew at a very young age that she liked women. And I'm just going to read you this one little part that really resonated with me. Glennon has a conference in this church, and Abby comes with her even though she feels really uncomfortable in churches because of her experience. And eventually Glennon says this to her wife: "When you shut down your heart to that church, you did it to protect God in you. You did it to keep you wild. You thought that decision made you bad, but that decision made you holy. Abby, what I'm trying to say is that when you were very little, you did not choose yourself instead of God and church. You chose yourself and God instead of church. When you chose yourself, you chose God. When you walked away from church, you took God with you. God is in you. And tonight, you, me, and God, we're just visiting church. We 3 came back for a visit to offer the folks here hope by telling stories about brave people like you who fight their whole lives to stay as whole and free as God made them. When we're done tonight, you and I will go, and God will go with us. I thought you looked at me every possible way, but now, the way you look at me in this minister's office is new. Eyes wide, watery, and red. The minister disappeared when you looked at me like that. Just you, me, and God there. Whoa," you said. I'm tearing up because I just really resonate with that. You chose yourself and God instead of church. I do feel like God is with us in all moments, and I know that so many people get triggered when they hear the word God or hear about Christianity, and I'm one of those people because I had an upbringing that made me feel really ashamed about many aspects of my life and my sexuality because of the church that I was raised in. But rediscovering it in my own ways has been just really healing and freeing and liberating, knowing that there are so many different interpretations and expressions of spirituality within the Christian church. There's another quote that I really like that I saw on Tumblr, which I still scroll through every now and then, but it said, "You can never really lose by letting go, because no matter what leaves, God is always with you." And to me, I liken God to spirit, to the universe, you know, and sometimes I will address God by that name, but I don't even see it as a person. I see it as an energy or a frequency, or just the knowing within all of us and also all around us. I think that spirit or God lingers in all things. Anyways, this book is really good. I highly recommend it. It covers so many important topics. I am trying to read 3 books a month. So the first book that I read this month of January was Little Fires Everywhere, and that book was so good. I read it in 2 days, and I decided not to watch the TV show because I felt like the book was just so good. And the next book that I'm going to read and hopefully finish by the end of the month is either The Celestine Prophecy or The Zahir by Paulo Coelho. I have been recommended this book my whole life, like since being on YouTube. So many people have told me that I'd probably really enjoy this one. And then this book is one that I read in Morocco that I just adored. I love this book so much, and I think I might like it more than The Alchemist because it's almost like a more mature version of a very deep spiritual story where you feel like you're the main character going on this journey, similar to how I felt when I was reading The Alchemist. You know, we all become Santiago the shepherd boy, finding our personal treasure. And oh my gosh, this one, I highly recommend it if you liked The Alchemist. This one is different, you know, but it's really, really good. I'm describing this so bad. It's basically about finding presence and how to not get so caught in the narratives of the future, how to feel the love and the presence of divinity in each moment, essentially. And then it really takes place between this man and his wife in their marriage and his attempt to recapture a lost love. It's, yeah, I'm really excited. I probably will read this one, but that is my book club for the month. If any of you have read any of these books, I would love to hear your thoughts. I have spent pretty much the whole day at home because I'm just getting some of the adult things done that are not the most fun to do. Something that has been a very big theme in my life this year, I think will continue to be a theme in my life as I get older, is any area of my life that I feel a little bit constricted or tight in my body about, anything that I'm stressing about. I try to use any ignorance, insecurity, fear to really light a fire and fuel myself to inquire further and to use that as motivation to just learn more and to not be so afraid of things that I don't know about. For example, taxes always stress me out because I'm like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know how this works. It can just be really stressful. And so every year I'm taking more time to learn more and more about them so I can better prepare and dissolve any fear. And in my experience, any area of density in my life that has been really troubling, really tumultuous and challenging that I have overcome, I have gained so many tools and I am so resilient in those areas. For example, speaking my boundaries. I speak my boundaries, especially with men or lovers in general, like no other. Moment to moment, this is a yes, this is a no. And the only reason that I am really good at using my voice now with my lovers is because I really had to learn that lesson and went through a lot of growing pains to get there. And so anytime I confront an area of my life where I feel that constricted, you know, thing in my chest or in my tummy or in my breath, I'm like, okay, wait, just like everything else that I've experienced, I am going to learn more about this and empower myself, and this won't ever be an issue again because right here and now I am choosing to do the work and learn more. And I've been using that in all areas of my life and it feels extremely empowering. Okay, I'm gonna eat these now. For dinner, I picked some fresh salad greens, some more cilantro, and I made some quinoa with vegetable stock for a little bit more flavor. I'm making probably the freshest salad I will ever eat. I love adding cucumbers to salad because it makes them a little bit more cooling and refreshing. Yellow pepper. It's really fun making salads as colorful as possible and preparing food away from your phone. I have been learning to do this more and more because I have felt a little bit of a stress ball right here in my upper abdomen, and this can come from eating when you're anxious or just not completing a stress cycle. In my experience is like if I have a deadline or if I'm working on something or I stay up all night working on a project, I use a little bit of adrenaline or my sympathetic nervous system to get tasks done. I need to always kind of sink into my body after my deadline or after I'm done with the project and remind my body that it's safe, that it can relax now. And when I don't do that, I feel this like little stress bubble like build up in my upper abdomen. Dropping into cooking food as a ritual has been continuously proving itself to be so healing, and I genuinely feel like having a calm nervous system is the biggest flex and is so important and vital and feeds into every single thing that we do. Trying to keep that in balance. Sometimes it just takes little changes and little alchemy shifts. We are so hard on ourselves, but if we look and see all the battles that we've been facing, or the fact that we haven't gotten good sleep for a certain period of time or haven't been nourishing ourselves well, we can see that it's so obvious as to why certain denser thoughts may be sinking in, or it may be harder to stick to your practices. And I really love going about healing in more of this like pragmatic way. Let me just look at what has been off. What have I been neglecting in my practice? Have I been doing and making time for the things that make me feel good in between some of the harder stuff? And usually I can shift that alchemy and move through a place of stagnation. For the dressing, I added lemon, tahini, liquid aminos, maple syrup, garlic powder, and sriracha to taste, and it was just super yummy and nourishing. And a little bit later, I made some hot chocolate or cacao with chai spices and agave, a little bit of almond milk. It was so delicious, and my roommates and I decided to have a movie night, so we made some popcorn. I like to have my popcorn with spirulina, and we just watched a movie on our projector and just cuddled up, and it was really sweet. But that's everything that I ate today. Thank you so much for joining me and for being just as you are, and I'll see you in a video soon.